All right, thanks so much for watching Morning Live. Now, many poor and working class students who depend on government funding from the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, NSFAS, are in dire circumstances as a result of the entity continuing to face challenges in its business processes, its IT systems, capacity, and of course also policies and controls. And this has resulted in some students not receiving their study grants for the 2017-2018 student funding cycle. And recently, the Minister of Higher Education and Training, Naledi Pandor, dissolved the NSFAS board and appointed Dr Randall Carolissen as an administrator to take over the management, governance and administration of the scheme. And the Minister joins us now from our parliamentary studios in Cape Town to discuss this matter further. Minister, good morning and thank you so much for engaging us on this very important matter.
Good morning, Sakina, and Eid Mubarak to you and all the Muslim viewers. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you so much, and to you, Minister. Now, firstly, Minister, there are students who are still complaining that they haven't received their funding, and the impact of this is quite serious because in some instances they live in private accommodation which they are unable to pay for. Some of them don't have food to eat, and we can, list a whole lot of problems that occur as a result of not receiving that funding. But how serious is this problem as per your assessment?
Well, I actually have asked the student organizations to identify who these students are and provide us with their names so that we can immediately ensure that if they are indeed persons who qualify to benefit from the scheme, we should urgently try to help them. I also want to establish from them why they have not received funding from the upfront payments. I authorized 4 payments to colleges and universities to assist students while we overcome this administrative backlog. So I really wish to know who these young people are, at which institutions, and what's the actual problem. And it's part of what Dr. Carolissen would look at. But I think our SRCs at every institution should be gathering data as well, sending it in so that we know who these students are and we immediately help if they are indeed recipients who fall within the criteria of beneficiaries.
And I think, Minister, you'd agree with me that that is a less than ideal way of going about trying to find a solution to this problem. Because ideally, your system should have showed this up. It should have been able to tell you exactly who the students are, where they are, and why, what the problems were in actually blocking them from receiving their funding. So what exactly is wrong with the system?
Well, what should have happened is that the students should have got a response if they're an applicant. And if they're successful applicants, they would have been asked to sign a statement of particulars in order to ensure that funding can be released to them. There's some students who haven't got an indication as to a response. There are a number of students who have applied, but their applications have not been adequately processed. So it's a whole lot of reasons, and this is why I'm saying that we need that support from students on the ground at institutions, the leadership, so that we know who we're dealing with. But you're absolutely correct. The processes haven't been up to the mark, and I've been extremely disturbed. I mean, it's August, and a student says they don't have funding. How have they been eating? What books were they using in order to study? Have their tuition fees been paid? And so on and so forth. So there's been a failure of systems. And this is why one puts in an administrator. An administrator is not appointed lightly. It's a use of a very strong part of the Act because I'm concerned at the situation, and I believe that we need to find urgent remedies, and I think the administrator is the person to assist.
And it is these sort of failings that have led some critics to say that government has actually failed. They've let down poor and working class students because they should have picked up on this sooner. What's your view on that, Minister? Could there have been an intervention much sooner?
Sakina, there have been interventions. Remember that I became alert to this problem a month after I was appointed in March this year. And what I did from April, I authorized the first upfront payment to institutions so that those students not receiving funding and who are applicants could be assisted. And then a second tranche was approved in late May. So we have taken steps to seek to remedy the situation. But what I'm dealing with in terms of an administrator is the problem of the institution. A large amount of funding has gone out, and I think we shouldn't be dishonest and not say there are thousands of young people who are indeed receiving their allowances. But one student not getting an allowance, one student whose tuition is not being paid properly is a great concern for me. But I am worried about the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. That's why I've taken the steps that I have. However, I don't wish to underplay the fact that hundreds of thousands of young people are receiving funding from public resources.
Minister, one of the priorities for the administrator is, of course, to ensure the effective close of the 2017-18 student funding cycle. Is there a time frame for that?
What I have done, Sakina, is I've said to the administrator, I'd like to give you 10 days to settle in, look into what the issues are, and then you and I are going to meet and you're going to give me a summary of what you've discovered. So I don't wish to predict and, just appear to immediately understand what's happening. I have said to him the most urgent is that closeout, both 2017, 2018, but more particularly, I want the opening for applications from new beneficiaries from September. Because remember that students who are beneficiaries now will not need to apply again. It will be really the new students, mainly first years, or those who might not have applied, not understanding that they may be beneficiaries, that will apply from September. So those are the three immediate areas of attention that the administrator will look at.
And at this stage, are you confident that he will be able to get that done and that by the beginning of September you would be able to move on a clean slate?
Having met him, spoken to him and discussed what needs to be done, I'm confident he will give it his resolute attention. I think Dr. Carolissen is an excellent appointment. He's very capable. He comes from a background where he had to have financial support, poor family, single parent, and really, I think, pulled himself up and did exceptionally well. So I believe he understands where young people are and what the needs of young people are, and he's going to put all his energies to helping us get the situation right.
Minister, the decision to dissolve the board of NSFAS, did that have anything to do with allegations of maladministration or malfeasance?
No, they don't. What happens is if you appoint an administrator, essentially all the powers that lie within the board are now with the administrator. So you cannot have, as people say, two centers of power. The law doesn't allow it. Once you appoint an administrator with all those powers, then the board is immediately dissolved. However, as part of the terms of reference, I have asked the administrator to advise me as to whether there is a need for any forensic investigations. I also have indicated my intention to appoint a committee of inquiry that will support him if there are particular areas that we need to investigate more thoroughly. So there is no intention on my part not to go into the heart of what the problems are. I want to understand what's been happening. Is there any fraud or dishonesty that one needs to look at? And if there is, we will deal with it.
And Minister, also Bonginkosi Kanyile, I just wanted your view on that, asking for a presidential pardon for students who participated in the hashtag Fees Must Fall. What is your view on students requesting presidential pardon at this stage?
Well, I think that's a matter that they've put before the president, and it's for the president to consider. I understand that the Minister of Justice received a memorandum from students yesterday, and it's my understanding that he did speak somewhat about the conditions under which such matters may be considered. So let us leave this with the office to which the matter has been directed.
Well, Minister, thank you so much. I was hoping that, we could pull up some of those tweets, but I have tried to weave them into the questions that I've put to you. So hopefully we have done justice. But of course, it doesn't end here. I'm sure we'll be able to get you back at a later stage again. But thank you so much for coming through this morning.
Thank you again, and thank you for the opportunity.
And that, of course, was the Minister of Higher Education and Training, Naledi Pandor, talking to us about what's happening at NSFAS. So there was great confusion around her talking about closing the financial year 2017-2018 applications and what that meant for new applicants. Well, she's clarified that September is when the new applications for 2019 will be considered. That process will open at that stage. So I hope that most of your questions at least were answered. But do keep them coming, because you know what, this is not the end, and maybe we will be able to get them answered otherwise. But that said, let's take a short break.